Listen to the rumble. Listen to the roar. Slowly in 3. They'll be flying off 4. Watch them now.
Welcome back, race fans. And we're sitting down for another vintage racing podcast. And the guest I have today, I've known for a long time.
Yeah, there is that.
This is Dan Shaw, my old man. You've heard me talk about him a bunch. A lot of you have met him at the racetrack. He's always at Lawrenceburg every Saturday night, all over the place. And we're going to talk about Dad's history with the way he grew up in racing and the people he hung around with, and then get into my racing and where the heck I came from. And I was discussing your background with someone yesterday, with Cameron yesterday, and told him you do truck lettering, hand pinstriping and truck lettering, and I full-time on a huge basis. That's all you do, booked weeks out, year-round.
Yeah.
And I told him the first thing you ever lettered was a high school marching band drum.
It was indeed.
Yeah.
Milford High School.
Tell start with where you were born at here and what got you into lettering and what got you into cars.
Right here in Cincinnati. Went to Milford High School. Everybody around had cars. In I was born in 50, so about 64, 65, I'm 14 or 15.
Damn.
And I've already been going to the races, so I understood.
Who took you to the races? What, like Lawrenceburg or drag races or what?
Didn't get to go to wanted to go drag racing, but couldn't. Clayton Baker, Uncle Clayton.
Okay.
He had a 60, originally, the first time I went to the Berg was Dad's 55 Plymouth. He had a brand new 55 Plymouth. I remember straddling the headlight.
Oh, nice.
And we parked down at 1 and 2. Used to be huge shade trees there all the way around the track. You probably remember some of those.
That's where we would park, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then kept going to Berg and liked it. And Hoffman's lived across the field from us.
Yeah, the farm you grew up on butted up against the Hoffman farm.
Correct.
So you could see the Hoffman farm through your backyard.
Yeah, I could hear
him.
Yeah, it was too far to see. But if they would fire off a car, man, I'd be on my bike and heading across the field,
Yes.
And it worked out well. So, and I can remember going to the little grocery store on the corner. I knew that every Saturday about 12 to 1 o'clock, and I've told Richard this, I would head over there on my bike and just park there, get an RC Cola, and kind of sit there and wait. And they would come idling out in a white Ford station wagon with wood grain on the side, an open trailer, and a Sprinter or a midget on it.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I can remember that.
Probably had a tire rack on it and everything.
Yeah, probably, but I was too young to really know that.
Yeah.
But I knew what I was looking at, and it was cool.
And that would have been mid-50s, late 50s, so...
that memory is about 61.
Okay, so 11 years old? Yeah, that's about the age you'd be riding a bike down to the corner store.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So that would have been maybe a black number 7.
I'm sure it was.
Yeah.
I'm sure it was.
Very cool.
And then Dad would go over and sit with him occasionally in the evenings, and I would get to whatever car they were working on, I could sit in the other one and make noises and steer.
Oh, that's cool.
I won a lot of features and never left their shop, in my mind anyway. Now, at that time, see, Richardson, he's 10 years older than me, so he's out and gone.
Yeah,
he was in college or something.
Yeah. Very cool.
Oh, yeah.
And then Tommy was there probably. Is he older or younger?
He's a bit older.
Okay.
Maybe 5 years.
Yep. So, he was probably working the farm.
He worked at that time, I remember Harry Brown's grocery store.
Oh, cool.
In Loveland. Yeah, because he came tooling in one night in that bug-eyed Sprite.
Oh, nice.
And I thought, that's cool.
Yeah, that is cool.
Yeah.
With the Hoffmans racing right there in your backyard, your dad, my grandpa, was a machinist.
Yeah.
Okay. So did he ever machine anything for Hoffmans?
Wasn't automotive oriented at all.
Okay.
Uncle Clayton was the one.
Cool.
Yeah, he was
the gearhead.
Oh yeah, he liked dirt cars, and because of him, I got to go quite a bit.
That's cool.
And now when I got old enough to get my own license and go, then we were drag strip guys.
Yeah.
Because that's what everybody did.
That's what every kid in the 60s did.
Well, I would get back to that. Everybody right in our little neighborhood, we lived in the country, but still there was half dozen houses around, and there was a new GTO in '65, a year-old GTO, some other guys owned, and 2 409s.
Damn.
Right within bike riding distance,
Wow.
So there were black marks everywhere.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
What was the first hot rod you ever saw? Do you remember running around?
Don Lamb.
Really?
Don Lamb had a chopped down red primer Roadster, probably an A model.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing it at Deer Wester's ice cream joint in Loveland. And I'm about 10 years old. I'm pretty young, And I walked over to it. I know it was channeled ridiculously low because I looked down into it at that time, and I was young.
Jeez.
Plywood seats, flathead engine. And when he left there, man, he threw gravel and squealed the tires. And I remember Mom, she was not impressed.
And you had a new hero.
Yeah, and I didn't know him. I didn't know he was at all.
Yeah.
And then the very next day, I'm looking across the field at the neighbors, and that car's in the driveway. So they come to find out they had a daughter, and there's the lambs up here, And I've talked to Don about that, recently, and he told me all about the car.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
No
and I
shit.
didn't know this at the time. His dad used to own midgets.
Really?
Yeah,
Don Lamb's dad?
Yeah, and he's told me the numbers, and I wrote it down, and he wanted me to try to track them down. But
That's so hard, especially with midgets.
Yeah, exactly.
Hundreds of thousands of midgets out there.
But they were offie midgets. They were good ones.
That is cool.
They were good ones.
Hey,
Yeah.
Cameron, you can open that door and let the dog in. Dad's shop dog is makes a lot of noise when people come around here, and she knows that we're in here talking.
Yeah.
So she
And it's
wants
cold
in the
out there.
house. Yeah, it's cold outside.
Yep.
So take us back to you growing up, and you start. Everybody had cars and hot rods around you, and you finally become 15, 16 years old.
Yeah. Got a dark blue 55 Chev,
Nice.
6-cylinder stick,
What'd you get for that item?
$150, man.
Jeez.
And it was a pretty decent car. It really was. And I drove it for a couple years
Wow.
and used it up.
Yeah.
I'm a kid.
Did you try to? I mean, did you try to do anything to it?
No,
hot
didn't have
rod
any
wise.
money. No
Yeah,
money.
just drove it the way it was.
Didn't have any money really till I got out of high school.
Yeah.
To get some money and work, and graduated on a Saturday night and went to work Monday morning.
Yeah.
I've never looked back. Went to work for a construction company, running heavy equipment and stuff.
Okay.
And I'd worked for them, when I was sophomore, junior, senior, after school, and started running heavy equipment and enjoyed it, liked it, but couldn't make any money in the wintertime.
Oh yeah.
Around here you couldn't. I don't know about nowadays, but so, and I was already painting. The very first thing I remember painting would be, I guess in 65, Bill's Golf had a short bed Chevy truck, and they wanted Bill's Golf on the side with a Golf logo.
Oh, cool.
And I'm sure it looked like hell, but it got me other jobs, on dirt cars and old drag cars and whatever. So
That's
here we
cool.
are.
They, I know you still paint trucks to this day.
Yeah.
What was the first race car you ever got to paint?
That would be Hazel Baker Brothers 68 Camaro, super stocker.
Wow.
Yeah, big
Nice.
block 4-speed car, and I had pictures of that darn thing up until about a year ago, and they leaked out. I don't know where they went.
Really?
Oh, they're
Hazel
around here
Bakers.
somewhere.
That was was it dark blue?
It was.
I've seen pictures of it
It
growing
was.
up.
Yep.
Yeah. Go in the house through the basement and walk into the basement garage. When you go to the bottom of the stairs, turn left.
Okay.
Go into the basement garage. There's a case of water right there.
All right.
Bring us a couple waters out, and then you can walk right out that garage straight out here,
Okay.
if you don't mind.
All right,
Thank you.
So where are we back to now?
Hazel Baker's Camaro,
Yeah.
that car, I'm sure you had looked at, I knew you were an artist early. You did a lot of drawing growing up, and
Yep.
I've got some of your old drawings. And it's cool because all your old drawings when you were a kid are gassers and like straight axle funny cars, and, old gassers, funny
That's what
cars,
you could see in
dragsters.
Hot Rod and Carcraft.
Yeah. Where would you get hot rod magazines?
Sent to the house.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Wow. You didn't
Well,
go
no,
to the corner store to buy them or
Well,
something?
yeah, when I was real young.
Yeah.
Some of the ones in the basement I actually bought. And what the hell was I thinking now? Lost.
The hot rod magazines?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then started
Hey.
subscribing early.
Nice.
And still have them.
That's cool.
I don't know how many's down there.
Yeah.
Well over 1,000.
What were some of the other magazines you would get at that time?
A magazine called Cars, which was a low
Oh, okay.
budget thing, but they had the best low buck racers. And there's down there now. When you want to look at old gassers, that's the books you want.
I've noticed that.
Yeah,
I've seen
Popular Hot Rodding.
Yeah,
Yeah.
You've still got an amazing library of books, and that's part of the reason why I grew up understanding the racing history and what cars looked like back in the day. As a kid, you want to look at old magazines, and you have a ton of them. And I've seen Cars has a bunch of them, and then Superstock magazine
Superstock was
had
good.
a lot of good stuff.
Oh yeah, they did.
And
they must have been hooked in tight with Baldwin Motion Performance out of New York.
Oh, okay.
The guys that sold all the supercars.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
because they're always advertised on the back cover, and there would be several cars in every issue.
And then what's funny to me is CarCraft back in that day was
It was stout.
not what CarCraft was today. It was like
It was a drag racing magazine.
Yeah,
pretty
yeah,
much.
that's
and
excellent.
They covered it, and it had a lot of color. It was just a good magazine.
So you graduated high school and you got
I
your
did.
blue 55, 56.
Oh, but no,
I'm not
that
even
thing's
listening.
long gone by then.
Okay, what else you got?
49, 50, 51 shifts. Had a bunch of them.
Oh, I remember Mom saying
Yeah.
that you came and picked her up. Mom has told me that story. You came to pick her up
Yeah.
for a date, and she was mortified by your primer car. And I'm sure you thought it was the
It
baddest
was
thing
cool.
going.
It was like a 52 Chev, had Craigers on it. You'll love this. I had taken put a 3-speed on the floor, of course, floor shift.
Yeah.
And built a shifter out of 4 or 5 old junk pieces. Well, I wasn't too sharp at the time, and I had the arms on the shifter or on the transmission upside down.
Yeah.
So what that did, it worked, but first gear was where reverse should have been, and then you would pull it back into second gear, which is where high should have been, and then third gear was where second should have been.
So
Everything
it's
it was reversed.
a reverse stage pattern.
I could drive it, but nobody else could drive it with a damn. It was,
kept thieves out of it.
Yep, and the boss was not impressed.
Very
But she finally got over it, apparently.
Yep.
She married me, so what can I
That's
say?
right. I've seen a picture of you looking over the engine in a tilt front end 56.
Oh, 55.
55. It's
Dark
got
green
a tilt. The tilt front end's up, and you're leaning over the engine, looking at the engine, and you look like you're 17, 18. Very
Yeah, I
young.
was pretty young. I was still in high school, and we had put that tilt front end. That was a steel front end that we just bolted together, and then bolted it to the frame horns on a 55. They stick out, and we just cut the frame horns, put a hinge on the bottom of them.
Yeah.
It worked slick. It really did. When you're
That's
18,
cool. You got to have the look.
Oh
man.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
cool.
It worked. No, not bad at all.
At that time, did any of your buddies have real fast cars?
Yeah, Ridgway. John Ridgway had
Okay.
a 55 Chev with a big block Chev in it, and Miller helped him build the engine. Ronnie Miller.
Okay, Ronnie Miller is like a legendary old hot rodder engine guy around here.
Still going
is.
strong.
Yeah, he's a bad
84
dude.
years old and climbs under those cars and does the work. Anyway, that's 55 would run. And interesting story, that car was stolen right from his house. And I was at Edgewater about a year later and saw it. It had been painted, but there were some things on it I recognized. And so I called him. I went over and saw the guys.
Yeah.
And acted like I was interested in buying the car. They had it for sale. So I got their name and number and went home, told John. And John went with the cops that night and got his car back.
Really?
And as far as I know, no one ever went to jail, but he got his car back.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's that kind of stuff doesn't happen today. Kids don't steal cars and stuff. But I know. I mean, I've heard you tell me the story about how you would explain how you would rig your Muncie 4-speeds to keep them from getting stolen and stuff. Because guys would steal
you put
transmissions and shit. I mean, that's crazy.
Well, on a 55,
stealing wheels are one thing, but
on a mid 50 Chevy, there's no motor mounts involved with the transmission.
okay.
The mounts are on the bell housing, so the transmission's just dangling there. All
Yeah.
you got to do is pull the drive shaft, knock the shifter off of it, and 4 bolts, and then you've got it.
Wow.
Yeah, if you want, not that I ever did it, but that's how you would do it.
Yeah.
And if you wanted to keep it, there was one particular, the top left bolt a little harder to get to than most of them, so
Yeah.
you put an Allen head bolt in there.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
whoever's going to steal it's not going to bring an Allen wrench.
Yeah.
And if they are, it's a pain
It's a
in the butt to
bitch.
do.
Yeah.
So
Make them cuss if they're going to steal it.
Yeah, make them earn it. Make
Yeah.
them earn it.
That's
Yeah.
wild.
But that Ridgway story reminds me of a car. I had a 65 Chev Biscayne, and a state patrol crashed up here on 28, chasing somebody.
Yeah.
And I was able to buy the 454 out of it.
Oh, wow.
No, and I had a 65 car, but this car that crashed was a 70.
Okay.
And I thought, this thing's going to be a runner.
Yeah.
It will run.
Yeah.
And so we put the big block in it in 4-speed, and it was the biggest dog I ever owned. It was just a stock 454, but I thought it would really run because
that was always the rumor. Cop cars were all hopped up and shit.
Were fast. Nah, this thing, man, it wouldn't fall out of a tree.
No shit.
Yeah,
that's pretty good.
Yeah, go figure. And I sold that car to a guy. Rick Niemiller bought it. I went to Florida. I don't know whatever happened to it. No clue.
This era we're talking about is 68, 69. You graduated high school in 69.
Yeah. So up until about 72 or 3, there was a lot of hot rodding going on.
Tell us about some of the drag races you went to. Where how far would you guys go, and how would you go, and who would go, and all that. I mean, Indianapolis is only an hour and a half away from us.
Yeah, I went to the Nationals every year from 68 to 78.
Okay.
And I still
God, those are good years to go to the Nationals.
My $2 pit passes.
Yeah.
I still got them. And the first year we went, there were about 6 or 8 of us loaded in a van and heading for Indy. And we slept, in the campground right there at the track. And that was a zoo. That was pretty impressive. I won't go into all that.
Tell us about the cage.
Yeah, they had a cage, and if you were acting silly or drunk or something, they just put you in this big cage. It was like a farm wagon with bars. I mean, it was a cage.
Yeah.
And when the cage got full, they'd haul you to jail.
Jesus.
Because they didn't want to run back and forth all night. They're dealing with 1,000 idiots.
You could spend a couple hours or so in the cage.
Yeah, with the other drunks.
Jeez.
You could. And, a lot of us did.
Yep.
And then your buddies come and bail you out the next morning. And,
wow.
And that's how it went down.
Where was the campground at? Because today, people that go to IRP, they know the campground is across the street. If you're standing on the starting line, it's to your left. Okay. But I believe, if I remember correctly, the old campground was out by the main road, out where the movie theater used to be.
The movie theater was across the street, and there was a big empty field right there on the left as you pull into the place, and that was the main campground.
Cool.
And it was big. It was pretty good size.
What day would you guys go on? Would you get up there on Thursday, or was it like Friday night?
No, I think we went Tuesday. And
we were there
Wednesday, Thursday, nice. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Damn.
Yeah, I know this. Now this is gross. This is gross. But we had a cooler, and we bought a big tube of bologna. What is that thing, like 2 foot long, and put it on ice. Of course, we're all 16 years old. We're gonna, this is gonna work well. And after about 3 days, that thing was floating in water. So I know, man. So you just pull out the old bologna, you get your pocket knife and peel off the bad stuff and get down to the fresh stuff. And it was rough, but that's what we did.
Yeah. Y'all survived.
Yes, we did. Jeez. And we weren't alone.
Yeah.
Everybody did that.
Oh, yeah. Now, when the race is in, who do you remember were the big dogs, and what were some of the favorite cars you saw?
Garlits, Kalita.
Okay.
Those guys were the ones.
They were kicking ass.
They were studs. They were studs. For a year, they're probably in the back room. There's probably a spark plug out of Garlits' car even today, if you knew where to look back there.
Yeah.
The big names back then, they were all there.
And then
it was pretty stout. The cool part about Indy at that time, they had tech inspection up at a shopping center in Indy.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because it was a big blacktop parking lot, lots of room. And you could go up there, and it was just an incredible car show.
Yeah.
All those cars are there.
Yeah. And now, were they tech at that time? Were they pumping them and that kind of stuff? Or the only thing I know about tech is what we went through.
Well, they were teching the stocker, the
okay.
Slammer cars.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I don't remember seeing any dragsters up there in that parking lot at all.
Because this is before they got into like breaking out times set time racing now.
Yeah.
This is heads up racing. And
if you had a J Stocker, you ran against other J Stockers.
Yeah.
You didn't run against 4 or 5 other classes.
And I mean, those would be cars from all over the country that you'd never seen before.
Yeah.
Which would be cool.
It was cool. It was very cool.
What were some of the ones you remember?
I remember one called a 69 Chevelle called a Super Goose. I just, the lettering on it blew me away. It was really done well.
Yeah.
All hand painted, and that would always interest me, obviously.
Yep.
And then Harry Lozader's 32.
Wow.
That thing would always carry the wheels in first and second gear. I wouldn't know him from the man to the moon, but I knew the car.
Now, was Stone Woods and Cook and Masmanian and all them guys, they were there doing their thing?
Yeah, they were there doing it. They were there doing it. At that time, by the 70, though, Gassers had George Montgomery had ruined the class with the Mustangs.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I mean, they weren't Willys Coupes anymore.
Yeah,
and shit.
They were funny cars.
Yeah. They were older
in disguise. Yeah. So all of a sudden, Gassers switched to modified production.
Okay.
You know, A, B, C, D, E modified production. And then the A modified cars, which were Camaros with tunnel rims and stuff.
Yeah.
All of a sudden that went to match racing and became pro stock.
Oh wow. Cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
That's so neat. They
And
were
then Jenkins was always a hero. You know?
Yep. And man, it's
He had
such
he
a
would
good.
roll in with a car hauler with like 6 cars on it.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, stockers.
It's such an. I mean, that's when it comes to drag racing. That's the time to see
was a
drag
good
racing.
time.
Tony Tierney and I just talked about this on the last podcast. Of
Tony would know.
That's the era. That's the age we all wish we could go see. You know.
That's why none of these cool cars are left. Guys like us beat them all to death. And it was fun.
Yep. That's so good. Man, do you remember at that time big mishaps, big crashes, blower explosions, that kind of shit?
Oh, yeah. I was there when
I mean, it was it's
John
it's
Mulligan
yeah.
got killed, unfortunately.
a bad part of the racing, but it's
Yeah.
part of it.
So I'm looking back, I'm amazed at how many clutch explosions and blower explosions I saw where no one was hurt.
Really?
Or if they were hurt, we never heard about it.
Yeah, it
You
was
know.
just a thing.
I saw a deal at Edgewater one night where a pulley had come off the front of a blower and was coming across the parking lot there slow, you know, just rolling. And a guy reached down and grabbed it, and that pulley was spinning about 5,000 RPM, and it ate him up. So you learn not to grab anything. It came off a race car. Gussie's making a little noise. Yep.
You were talking about like the modified production classes.
Yeah.
And I know you would have been highly interested in those because that's what you were running at the time. When you went to Indy, was any of your buddies racing? Did you go to watch them run, or was that just
Not really.
kinda
Just
too high?
Granny Goose would have been the big car out of Cincinnati.
Yeah.
And then a guy
Wasn't
named
there
Truman Fields had a stocker, a Firebird called Hard Times.
Really?
Yeah, hand lettered, good looking car, and he was always running on the national record.
Was that like I know the Granny Goose dauber, Jim Farr?
Yeah.
He's a famous lettering guy around here. He would have done that.
He did do that. Him and Bill.
Him and Bill Rell was lettering all the cars back then around here.
Yep.
What was was there, I never think about this because you always think about the gassers and the funny cars and stuff. Were there motorcycle classes running at the Nationals? Did they do
No, they didn't do bikes back then.
no bikes?
Okay.
Okay.
That was later on.
Because I remember growing up, we'd go to the Nationals. You know, we'd go there to see the drag cars and stuff.
Yeah.
But I remember seeing the drag bikes in that era. They had a good-looking girl that would run the one. I just saw a picture of her this weekend.
Yeah.
She was the Winston cigarettes.
Yeah.
And those were always cool for us to see, but that didn't go back that
No.
far.
I don't remember bikes running on Saturday night.
Really. They had their
No.
own thing.
They must have because they weren't there.
Your local track here in Cincinnati would have been Edgewater Drag Strip, which
Yep.
is still racing today.
Yep.
And then there's Tri-State, which is still racing today.
Yeah. And then
tell-
there's Thornhill, which at that time was a gun and knife club.
Oh, really?
Yeah, if you ran up the hill, you better have buddies with you.
Yeah, everyone's got to have that spot.
Oh yeah, every town's got one, I'm sure.
What were some of the big shows and events that came through Edgewater, which would be basically like the pros,
match
the
racing.
pros coming to your
Yeah.
backyard?
Garlett's and Chris Karamessinis.
Really?
Those guys must have raced everywhere.
Wow.
I mean, like on a Tuesday night. And then I remember going to Killcare one evening, which is, we'll say Dayton,
Yeah.
Xenia area, on a Wednesday night and saw Billy Stepp and a new pro stocker run against Bill Jenkins in a pro stocker.
Dang.
Yeah.
Oh,
in
that's
the middle of
cool.
the week, that was cool.
Yeah.
That was cool.
Yeah, that's very
and
cool.
Stepp showed up with the car and primer.
Oh.
but he won 2 out of 3. It was a
Wow.
Hemi car. And then later on, the car was painted. Bill painted it, Bill Rell. Dauber lettered it, and it was Wanted, Dead or Alive, Billy the Kid.
No
And it was
kidding.
really beautiful.
Ooh, that's
Yeah.
cool.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
At that time, once you got out of school and you got to working and you're driving a drag, which is like a lowboy semi-truck hauling heavy equipment,
Yeah.
and you're operating bulldozers, when you could finally afford it, what was the quickest car you had back then that you were able to get together?
I got to think about that. I'm drawing a blank. At that time, well, I would have been helping Trammell.
Oh, yeah. With
Don Trammell, yeah.
what
Yeah.
did Trammell have?
Camaro drag cars.
Okay.
Yeah, big block, 4-speed cars.
And that car was lettered up the Running Bear?
There was Running Bear, and there was a couple others that were not lettered. But yeah, they were 10-second cars.
Now, was Tremmel your same age or was he older?
He's older. He was
Okay.
older than me. Yeah.
Okay. And how was he affording to go racing like that?
Single.
Okay.
Yeah, single guy, man.
Yeah.
That explains that.
Yeah.
And and he did.
Because I've
good.
seen the pictures of his cars from back in the day, and man, he had good looking race cars.
Oh yeah, he did. Now going way back when I first met him, I had a '64 Chev Biscayne, 327 4-speed, and I had 488s in it, so it was, it would get along good. And Trammell had a '63 with little bitty power pack heads on it, and I could never beat him. I'm thinking, man, how does that thing run like that?
Yeah.
And later on, I come to find out when we got to be really good friends, they were, regular camel humps, and he had ground all that off and then rebuilt it with fiberglass to make them so he could cheat. Is what
Really?
I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because they'd
He
open
had
the
cheater
hood.
heads.
Yeah, and he'd be, if he was going to run try to class race, well, he'd be running against
That's
smaller
so
horsepower
cool.
cars. Yeah, yeah.
That's
yeah.
excellent.
He was slick.
That is cool. I like that. Now he owned he started a company called Milford Towing.
He did.
And that took you down that really got you started with the lettering trucks and towing truck companies, which is still this day a big business. And every town has towing companies, and I don't know what it is about towing companies, but they all want to have the best looking
they gotta
trucks.
outdo each other.
They got to outdo each other.
Yeah.
And to this day, you letter a bunch of trucks.
We were our best.
I know you were driving a drag, and you were
I was.
you were operating heavy equipment, and then you got a job at W.L. Harper Construction,
did.
driving a drag, a
Yep.
semi truck with a low boy, and you'd move heavy equipment.
I liked it very much. Enjoyed it.
Yeah, and that was a good paying job. And
Oh, yeah.
Well done. And then
Yeah.
you were still pinstriping and had lettering on the side.
Yeah, I'd come home at night, and during the week, if I got home at a decent hour, because driving a drag, you didn't. You got your overtime early and late. And but Friday nights, I'd have at least 2 cars sitting there, or 2 trucks sitting at home, and I'd letter all weekend.
Yeah.
Sometimes 3.
I remember getting to play in all those race cars.
I'm sure you did. I've got pictures of that.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah. And then
This is before vinyl, so everything's
everything was
hand
hand-lettered.
lettered.
Yeah. And then vinyl came in, and all the fire trucks and police cars went to vinyl.
Yeah.
Because it's reflective stuff. So we do a ton of that.
Very cool. When that starts, now by this time I've come along. Brandy, my sister Brandy's came along.
Yep.
You're married, mom, and
Yep.
got 2 kids. So the racing, I'm sure, slowed down.
Yep. Well, we still went.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
we
I mean,
didn't- I
as
didn't
far as-
own anything.
Yeah, no, own
Yeah,
anything.
yeah.
You had a 57 Chevy. You had a bunch of Tri-5 cars.
Oh yeah. So
remember-
a killer black 55 Chev when we got married,
Oh, really?
which is fine. It's,
Yeah,
that's
that's
what
what
it
you
was
do.
for.
Yeah.
And then went without a car for probably 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
And then bought that black 57.
Okay.
And drove the heck out of it. It was a 6-cylinder automatic, but it was a solid straight car. And I just, we needed an extra car. And I thought, well, we're not going to buy some Nova or something. We're going to, we're going to buy something cool.
Yep.
And we did, and kept it for 20 years.
When did the El Camino come along?
Well, it would have been 70. It was a 71, and it was a year old, or 2 years old. Probably bought it in 73.
Not quite the family.
Well, no,
Family
but-
station wagon.
Well, yeah, but we had to be cool, Yeah.
I look at pictures at El Camino. That was a really cool
Yeah,
car.
that's a good one.
So now I come along and I'm a toddler running around tearing shit up.
Yep.
And take us down that route of, as I get older, what racing you took me to and got me started on stuff.
You were born in July, and I'm quite sure you were at Lawrenceburg by September, if you want to know the truth. Your sister didn't care for the noise.
Yep.
It scared her, so she didn't go much.
Yeah.
But you did. And, we're still going, dirt racing.
Yep.
Then.
Yeah, I remember.
Spectating up in
Yeah,
the stands.
I can remember like the early 80s, 82, 83. I can remember. That's as early as sprint cars as I can remember, that
Yeah.
era. And what's funny is we're sitting in your shop right now, and you've got a wing off of Doug Wolfgang's Nance 1N car here from like 86.
Yeah,
and
the
I mean,
house car.
we watched that car race.
Oh, yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. Yeah, Tennessee Chad restored
Tennessee
that car.
Chad,
Of course,
yeah.
Tennessee Chad lives in Kentucky, but that's a long. I don't know how the hell he got the name,
I don't
but he did.
remember either. He sounded like he's from Tennessee,
And
so
he's
we
a good
gave him
dude.
the name
He is a
Tennessee
good dude.
Chad.
He
He's-
has, what's he have? Probably 6 or 8 sprinters.
Yeah, and he runs them hard in the vintage
Yes,
car.
he does.
I've run
He does. He's got a nice collection.
my. He got me in trouble at Eldora running the vintage cars.
Did he? Is that
Oh
right?
yeah. We went to Eldora to run vintage cars, and they gave us the talk beforehand that this one guy John is the main guy of the club, and he gave the speech, and he
Lawhorn,
said,
I think.
yeah, and he said, me and Chad are going to set the pace. You guys are going to go as quick as us, but don't pass us. If you can run with us, but don't pass us. And someone said something about, like, how quickly you be going, and he said, don't worry, you won't catch us. All right, whatever, dude.
No.
So we went out, and, like, within, like, a lap, I've caught those guys, and I was in the Ellison sprint car.
Yeah.
And I caught them, and I remember I rolled up next to Chad and kind of looked over and gave him a wave, and Chad looked over and nailed the throttle.
It was on.
And it was on. And I took off with him, and I'm thinking in my head, this is awesome. Chad knows I want to go quicker, so he's picking up the pace, and,
Sure.
and I'm not breaking the rules.
Yeah.
And we took off, and come to find out, we flat left the field and went running hard. And when we got off the track, Lawson was not happy.
Yes.
He come in pissed and was mad and throwing shit. And then I got a handwritten letter from Eldora saying, tell number 2 Shaw to slow down. And that's all. I still got that letter.
I'm sure you
Eldora
did.
telling me to slow down. And then I remember Chad laughed at that. He thought that was so funny.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm in a non-cage early car, and he was in like an 70s cage
Oh,
car
yeah.
with big rubber and shit.
Sure.
So it was fun. We had a blast.
Yep.
We went to Lawrenceburg growing up, and it was the old Lawrenceburg, the quarter-mile
It was,
track.
which I loved.
Yeah, I
And
did too.
I miss.
Old covered grandstands.
I'm a bull ring
and-
guy. I like bull ring.
Yeah. It's
Yep.
just, it's better racing. It is.
It is.
I remember the world. I remember a lot of, at that time, this would have been early 80s, all through the 80s, a lot of wing cars. This area was wing. There was
It
a lot of
was.
wing stuff
Yeah.
here. You know,
Yeah.
Southern Ohio, all that was wing cars.
Yeah.
I remember the World Outlaws coming through.
Yep.
I can remember lots of memories of those cars. I remember one night we were there, and you would take us down, and we'd go into 1 and 2, just like you said. Outside of 1 and 2, there was these big shade trees, and you'd pull your truck up there, and we'd stand in the bed of the truck and watch the races.
Yep.
And then, since you were a sign guy, you had scaffolding.
We did.
And we took scaffolding and would set scaffolding up and sit on that scaffolding.
Yeah, it was cool.
And I remember, it's funny, you remember things when you're a kid. I remember it was total common thing that when they would hot lap and run heats, huge, big softball and even like football size clumps of dirt
yeah, clay.
coming out that far and
know it.
hitting us and hitting
Like
the cars.
shrapnel, man. Yep,
Huge
it's crazy.
chunks of clay.
Yep.
And that you don't see that anymore.
I know it.
That's changed.
Yeah, it
you know,
has.
and the tires have changed,
It has
tracks
to
have
be tires.
changed.
It has to be the
Yeah,
tires,
the
I would
old
think.
square double diamonds
Yeah.
just threw more dirt.
They did.
You know,
There's no doubt
they
about
did
it.
because you don't see the. I mean, you get pelted with the little pelts of dirt today,
small stuff.
But this was stuff that knocked
some of
you
it
on
be
your
a
ass.
1.5 long string of dirt about 3 inches in diameter.
Yeah,
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 come flying. And you could big enough to see. You could duck them.
yeah.
You know, if you were paying attention.
Yep.
Yep.
And I remember being on that scaffolding, and Joey Kerr was hanging out with us
Yeah.
at the time. We were racing go-karts together, which we'll get
You
to
need to
next.
start hiring better friends if Kerb was there.
We would have been 12, 13 years old, and had it been a World Outlaw show, probably the Hoosier Fall Classic.
I'm sure it was.
And
I know it's coming.
yeah, Sammy Swindell rubbed Jack Hewitt the wrong way.
Yep, stuck a wheel in it.
Stuck a wheel in him, and after they threw the checkered, Hewitt ran up and was blasting the back of Sammy's car, hitting his Nerf bar. Bam, bam. And I remember you looked at Joe and I and yelled, "Go now, boys, they're going to throw down." And at that time, you could run down the back straightaway, which was lined with trees, and you could run down through the trees and cut through the trees and get into the pits. It was the way you snuck into the pits. In the daytime, you couldn't do that, but at night you could.
Yeah.
And Joe and I jumped off that scaffolding and ran full speed back to the pits. And we got to the pits just as Hewitt had got out of his car and got to Sammy. And there was a huge crowd of people. And Sammy lifted his helmet off his head, and he didn't get his helmet halfway off his head, and Hewitt decked him, blasted him, told him to get his candy ass back to Tennessee. And I mean, at 12 years old, that was the coolest thing I'd
yeah,
ever
he was
seen.
a hero then.
Yeah,
No
we
doubt
were
about it.
we were instant Hewitt fans to this day, and Sammy was the bad guy. You
Yeah.
know? And it's funny because it took me a long time to get over hating Sammy for that. I mean, growing up, I can remember Sammy was, and my mom still hates Sammy.
Yeah,
so down.
I know. She's a Kinzer fan, no doubt about it.
But and what's funny is when I got into my 30s, got older and started paying attention to the history and what he's won and what he's done and
Oh, yeah.
the things he accomplished.
He's incredible.
Now I like Sammy. Like,
Oh, yeah.
it's incredible what he's accomplished.
Yeah.
But man, when I was a teenager, he was Darth Vader. He was
Yeah.
the bad guy.
He
And it was all because of that.
Yeah.
At some point, and I know it's about the time when I was growing up, you had a backyard go-kart that I played on.
Yeah.
Where did that come from?
Let me think about that. Where did I get that?
And it wasn't like a high-rise backyard kart. It was an actual old race
It was a
kart.
racer.
It had,
You know, I don't remember, and
Yeah.
I should. Usually stuff like that I pay attention to. But we drug it home, put it together, and I remember taking you down to the Showcase Cinemas, the big blacktop parking lot. It had an area that drained, that everything drained to.
Yeah.
So consequently, it was sand on top of blacktop, and you could drift it really well in there. And you were young. I mean, you're talking maybe 5 or 6.
yeah.
So I had it rigged so you could hold it wide open, and you learned how to drift right there. You probably don't remember that.
No,
but
I mean,
man,
I've seen
oh,
lots of
man.
pictures of going there.
Yeah,
but,
yeah, that was good. And I could, lift the cart in and out by myself and fire you up, and I just sit on the tailgate and watch you run laps.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it was a good
Yeah,
time.
that's
And then
cool.
before that, before we hit an engine, I put a handle on the back of the cart like a push mower.
Yeah.
So I could run and jog and push you. But then you got big enough to where you could jam on the brakes, man. It about killed me one day. And I thought, hell, it's time for an engine. If
What's
he's-
this pedal do?
Yeah, no kidding, man. I about ate that whole handle. And yeah, that was on Carpenter Road of all
Yeah,
places.
that was the house we grew up in. I remember running that cart, and I built a track in the backyard.
Yeah, we
It
did,
was
back through the trees.
half in the trees and half, yeah, that's safe. Half in the trees and half out, and the one turn was bare dirt, hard packed dirt.
Yep.
And I would fill a bucket with water, carry it back there, water that turn down,
Yeah.
and then that turn I could get sideways on.
Just
and I
right.
remember just thinking I was a sprint car driver. Now that was from the age 5 all the way up until the age 9, and
Yep.
at 10 years old, you took me to West Union go-kart track.
Yep.
How'd that come about?
Dick Huntley's track. The guys I worked with at Harper had started running karts.
Marty Grooms.
Marty Grooms.
I remember that
Marty
name.
told me about it, and I said, well, we got to go see this. And actually, I was up there lettering trucks in West Union on a Friday. So I went over to the track, and here's Huntley out there watering it down and rolling.
Yeah.
And man, the place was cool looking.
It's to this date the nicest go-kart track I've still ever seen.
smoothest, best
Unreal.
prepared ever.
Yeah.
And anyway, I couldn't stay that night because I had to, come home, and so we arranged to go back. And when we did go back, I got you a ride in a cart pretty quick with a guy up there. You were a little bitty. We had to put pedals and stuff, pillows behind you.
Yeah.
Because it was a big guy's cart, but that worked out well. And then your grades weren't exactly, if I remember correctly, great.
Yep.
And I'm thinking to myself, I've got leverage here. We'll put
Yes.
him in a cart, and if he doesn't get good grades, we don't race.
That flat ass worked.
It did work. It did work. It's leverage.
I
man.
can
You gotta have
remember.
leverage.
I can remember the
going
go-karts
racing without
being-
you once.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Yep. I said, yeah. I did. My grades are okay. I'm going. I'm
Man,
going.
it
I
worked.
did good
It-
this week.
I could attest that got me through high school and everything.
Yeah,
I didn't just
it did.
if my grades weren't good, I didn't get to go racing.
Yeah. And then our friends, Willis Freeman,
Yeah.
Danny down to Radiator Shop, they said, well, now if you're going to do this, we got to do it.
Yeah.
And then next thing you know, we had about a dozen carts running out of Milford.
Cool.
And they called it the Milford Bunch up there.
Very cool.
And they stuck us all in the amateur class because, I don't know why.
Yeah.
They looked at us and thought, these bunch of heathens are going to run over each other. we don't want them tearing our good equipment up.
Yeah.
And that class was big.
I remember that was like a full field of carts.
Oh, yeah. It was always
It was
14,
amateur
16
two-cycle.
carts.
We're
Yeah.
talking Yamaha
Yeah.
KT100
Yeah.
two-cycles.
Uh-huh. And
Yeah.
cheating, my Lord, cheating. There was no rules.
Willis Freeman, the guy I drove for years, we're going to get to that.
Yeah.
He was a MacGyver type. He could build anything out of nothing.
He could.
Slippery, interesting guy.
Yep.
And if there was any Smokey Eunuch type cheating to do, Willis was the guy.
He was sharp.
Yeah,
he was very sharp.
Getting him involved was a
Yeah.
blast.
He was a tinkerer.
Yeah.
And an excellent fabricator and smart as heck.
Yeah.
Not book smart, but common sense smart,
Yes.
which beats the hell out of book smart every time.
Yeah. We went that first time we went, I was 10 years old and you got me riding that cart. And I remember it was towards the end of the year. We went back 2 or 3 times and I got to drive this other guy's go-kart. And basically they would race all night and then after the races you could go out and run laps.
Yeah,
and I
they
would
could leave
get-
the lights on and let people
just let
go.
people play, and I
Yeah.
would get to run then. That winter for Christmas, I got I remember you guys took me out in the garage, and there was a pile of blankets, and you told me, look underneath those blankets, and pulled the blankets out, and there was a Margay go-kart under there.
Was.
It was a blue Margay go-kart.
Yep.
And I'm looking at it right now, hanging on the wall in the shop. It's the first go-kart. So now I'm 11 years old, and spring comes around, and we are going racing go-karts. We're doing it.
Yep.
And
I had an older Margay with a 100cc Yamaha on it.
Okay.
And then you had that one.
Yeah,
and,
with the Briggs on it. I was running the junior Briggs, I'm sure.
You were? No.
Rookie?
No. Just kid class. I mean, they didn't do restrictors and all that
None
stuff.
of that. Yeah,
we just threw you to the wolves and we went at it, man.
I remember
your main competition was a little girl, if I remember correctly.
Oh yeah, yep. Sarah Fisher was there.
Fisher.
Sarah was running with us, and she was fast.
Quick. Oh,
she was quick.
Lord, yeah, she was fast.
And then, but that's where I met Joey Kerr.
It is.
And Joey was like, if you've ever seen any kind of movies with a bunch of kids in it, the bad kid that cusses a lot, that was Joey. And I had
the mullet.
Yeah, with the mullet.
Oh yeah.
I was the opposite of that. And so Joey and I started hanging out because we were the same age.
Sure.
And became buddies racing together, and we're still friends to this day.
Well, I remember Ron from Edgewater. His dad running dragsters.
Yes.
I didn't know him, but I remember. I thought, I know that guy.
That makes sense.
And he ran Valley Machine, and I had heads done down there. And when you took your heads down, you always went and saw Ron because he knew what the hell was going on.
That's cool.
You could explain to him what you wanted and leave and not worry about it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. And I hadn't seen him in years, and I thought, damn, that's that guy from Valley Machine.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. I never knew that.
Yep.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
Joey and I become buddies, and we started hanging out at each other's houses, and we run karts. So that first couple years, I was running a Briggs, and I continued to run that Briggs.
Yeah, and we got better and better Briggses too. We started buying good ones.
Yes.
What? Because I did not build those Briggs engines.
Yeah, and who were we getting them from?
Chafin, the bed one they got Chafin from up around.
Before Chafin would have been APCO engines.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, we had an APCO engine.
Absolutely.
Because when I ran West Union, that was one of A.R. Gardner's old engines.
Okay, good.
The West Union Street Race.
Yeah, you got you got a better memory than I do.
Yeah, because when we were running that race, AR we were fast. We were quick.
Yeah,
like
you were.
Rocket ship fast.
Yeah.
And first time ever on pavement. And we start the race. It was West Union Street Race, which the street races weren't your favorite.
What West Union? What the hell was that?
Not West Union, Wapakoneta. Sorry, it starts with a W, and I got mixed up.
That's right.
The Wapakoneta Street Race. And we went up there to run pavement, and we had never ran pavement before. And we ran the street race, and I remember we were real fast, but you didn't like the street races.
Hell no, they put a hay bale in front of a light pole and tell you that's safe. Are you kidding me?
And they were fast. God,
they were
fast.
Jeez.
80, 90 mile an hour. And
I had no desire.
Manhole covers and concrete curbs and light poles. And
the blacktop is washboarded from traffic.
Yeah.
And I thought, this ain't for me. I'm not doing this. I don't have a death wish.
Yeah.
But we just throw the boy out there and let him go.
Oh, of course, yeah. I'll take it.
Seeing as how we're here.
I ran that race, and it was like a Le Mans start where you had to run over and get in a cart and start it and take off.
Yeah.
And our clutches were set up for dirt racing, and they wouldn't engage.
Right.
So we took off, and everyone left me. And I started running and picking guys off, and we went through the first lap, and I remember I spun out. The way the street races are, I would go down the front straightaway like 3 or 4 blocks, and I would turn left, and then I was out of your vision for
about 40 seconds.
40 seconds.
And I hated that.
And you didn't know where I was at. I'm racing through the city, and you'd have to watch your stopwatch, and if I didn't come back around in 40 seconds, you went looking for me.
Get a scoop shovel and go look.
yeah, and that would be hard to watch your car.
It was.
But I came around that first turn on the first lap, and I got tagged in the ass end and spun out. And I sat there, and the way it was, I had to sit there while the whole class went by. And I took off running. I came down the straightaway towards you guys, and I remember A.R. Gardner was out there in the straightaway waving his arm, come on, go, come on.
Yep.
And I went flying into that turn, wide open, never lifted, and slammed into the hay bales again and spun out. And after the race, I found hay wedged in the bead of the tire of the right rear.
Yeah, I remember that.
But I took off. I got straightened up, took off, and when I took off, the 3 leaders lapped me on the second lap of the race,
Yeah.
and I ended up unlapping myself
Yeah, you
and
did.
raced back to second.
Yes, you did.
And didn't catch the leader,
That-
but we were like on the same straightaway with the leader on the last lap.
yeah, that was pretty stout.
That was a blast.
And
God,
it
that was a fun
about
race.
I don't know if they did laps or minutes.
time. It was
yeah,
minutes.
because it was a long race.
Yeah, it was like a 40-minute race. It was long, 30
But
or
it
40
was 20
minutes.
anyway.
Yeah, it had been. It
Seemed
was
like an hour for you, probably.
Yeah, it was a long time for
Yeah.
me. It was it was a timed race, and
Yeah.
I had enough time to unlap myself and get
Yeah.
back to second.
And there was a lot of carts in it.
Oh yeah,
I've
yeah.
got some pictures of the starting lineup.
Yes, that was with our Margay dirt cart. You know, we didn't have pavement carts and dirt carts.
No.
You just had go karts.
I don't even know. I probably borrowed a set of slicks from somebody.
Yeah,
but I don't remember that.
I don't remember
either.
who. Maybe Joey Kerr. Maybe Kerr.
Maybe.
Kerr wasn't there racing.
Kerr
I think he was
wasn't there.
running a WKA event. He was
Probably.
off traveling, racing.
Probably. Wow.
We go back to West Union, and Sarah Fisher's there, and I can remember the things you learn about racing. I remember Sarah was very fast. She was smooth, consistent, but Joey Kerr and I figured out, and I remember even you and Ron probably clued us in, if you would go up and nudge her and just let her know you were there,
Yeah.
it would break her concentration, and she'd miss her line the next turn.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you know, we're 12 years old learning this shit.
Yeah, and she's probably 9.
Yeah, oh yeah. Well, yeah.
Intimidator, man.
Yeah, and I just remember that, you know, that was a valuable lesson that I used for years. You know, some guys you could rattle easy, and some guys you just
Yeah,
couldn't. You
yeah.
couldn't rattle them.
Well, she got over it, if you know.
Oh my God, yeah, yeah. She came on, and you're right. She was probably 9, 10 years old, and by
Yeah.
the time she was 11 or 12, she was unbeatable.
Yeah.
and just kicking ass.
Yeah.
And then went on to run sprint cars, and now she owns Indy teams, so she
Yeah.
did something right.
Oh, yes, she did. Yes, she did.
And
Yep.
I was a couple years ago. We had vintage cars at Indianapolis, and their team was running a car, and I walked out to the grid, and Sarah was up in the tower, like
Sure.
the pit cart, and I didn't expect her or them to recognize me. Wasn't even trying to do that. I just wanted to see the ordeal. And I was standing there watching the car. They were tuning on the car, and they were sending it back out for practice. And I heard someone say, "Hey, Josh," and turned around, and it was Dave, her dad.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, and he remembered me.
Now, I
And-
regret that I never got to see Dave, or never got to be friends with Dave.
Yeah, he was a smart dude.
He was very smart.
Yeah, he
you know,
remembered me.
He
And-
was the enemy, man. So, you know, I'm keeping my speed secrets to myself.
That's right.
Like
That's right.
how much air to run and things like that.
Yeah, big time
Yeah,
speed
exactly.
secrets.
Exactly.
I remember the era we're talking about with go karts. No body fairings,
No.
open wheel go karts.
Yeah.
You
and
didn't
I-
rub on
I
guys. and you
detest
didn't-
go-karts with bodies on them.
Yeah, I'm not a
That's a
fan of the
shame.
bodies.
I don't like that.
You're not
That's-
teaching the kids anything
No,
when they
you
have.
teach them how to blast each other and go on, and that's
Yeah.
not right.
Yeah, if we touch tires, we took a ride.
Yeah. And
Tell
you
me
learn-
about
yeah,
any
got a film of
rides
that.
I took.
Well, I can think of the first one you took was hot lapping, and I think the cart was even blue still. We hadn't
Yeah.
painted it yet.
Yeah, it was the
And,
first time. It was the first.
And you were quick.
That winter you got me the cart. That spring we went. They probably had like an open practice.
Yeah, probably.
And that's the first time Mom had ever went to the races.
Yep.
To show Mom what her son was about to be doing.
Yeah, and how safe it was. And daggone, he was zipping around there, and the boss is filming that. And he climbed a wheel, and the damn cart flipped probably 4 times, slinging him out on the track.
Yeah.
And the camera hits the ground, and she went running. And somewhere in
Yep.
the house is that
I
video.
did. I climbed the
Yeah.
right rear on a guy, and
Oh,
man,
yeah.
went for a ride.
Yeah, you did.
I remember I flipped, and you know, wasn't the first time I'd crashed hard in the backyard of shit.
Oh, yeah.
And I flipped and immediately stood up, and I remember the corner guy there was so scared. He said, "No, lay down." And I laid back down, and that scared the hell out of you and Mom.
Yeah.
Because, you know, you see me stand up, and then I drop back down.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I guess I'll lay down. Like, I'm fine, dude. Is my go-kart okay? That's all I care
Yeah,
about.
that's all I care about.
Tell
Yep.
that reminds me of the steering wheel story, the bent steering wheels.
Oh yeah, we had just got into karting, and we went to a swap meet up above Dayton, not Hare Arena, the Hobart Arena.
Yeah.
And on a table there, a guy had a bunch of steering wheels, and that one side was flat. And I'm thinking to myself, I guess that's so bigger guys, you know, it won't rub their legs or whatever. And I asked him, I said, what's the deal on the flat steering wheels? He said, that comes from landing on them, son. I thought, ah, shit.
Thought these things didn't flip.
Yeah, exactly. And he had a bunch. That boy had crashed a bunch because he had 4 or 5 of them. And then we've got one in the back room flat.
Yeah, bent one, flat one from taking a
Where'd you-
landing.
Oh, that was up at 35 Raceway.
That was
a
probably
bad
my most
deal.
gnarly go-kart
It
crash.
was. That one boy retired.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it knocked him out. It was cold. He was out.
We had-
you came back and ran second or third that night.
Yeah, from the tail
good.
with a bent steering wheel.
Yeah,
We had a
Tore the gauges off and we bent the steering wheel back.
broke the header off the
Yeah.
engine. We had to borrow a header
Yeah.
and put the cart back together.
Yeah.
I went flipping on that one. I went underneath a guy, and basically I shoved the cart in there underneath him.
Well, there is that. There is
and
that.
I climbed over his left front, left rear, like his whole side of his. Or no, I take that back. He went under me. We were running like second, third, and at
You had the line.
35,
You
we were in
absolutely
the
had the
line,
line.
and I was up high and diving down, and he came in on the bottom.
Yes, he
and
did.
we hit, and he went over the top of me, and I had marks in my helmet's visor from his chain and gear
Yeah.
that hit.
That was a bad deal.
And I went over, we both went flipping, and my leg got caught in the go-kart and kind of ragdolled me around pretty
Yeah.
good. I got video of it.
Yeah.
And and what's funny is I remember that crash. You had told me if you ever crash again and you're all right, get up so I know you're all right.
Yeah.
And if you watch the video, I'm laying there with the cart on top of me, and you can see me struggling to get up. Like, I got to get up.
Yeah.
I got to get up.
And the other boy was knocked out.
Yeah, the
He
other boy was knocked out.
He stayed in the
cold.
seat, but he was out.
God, he took a hard ride.
I thought he broke his neck because his head was at a funny angle.
Yeah.
I thought this is not good.
When he woke up, he took his hand and picked his head up and
Yeah, he
straightened
did.
his head up. And,
Oh, shit.
Yeah, that was a rough one.
Yeah.
And then we went on racing that night. That was
Yep.
that was at 35. How
you
did
know
we?
what? You know what I regret about that whole night though? I didn't have the right gear, or you would have spanked them.
Oh, really? That's what you remember?
Oh yeah, all that. Yeah,
Wow.
because the guy that won was an older guy, and he remembers. He told us, "I just knew you guys were coming. I knew
Yeah.
you were coming."
That's
I
cool.
said, "Yeah, but I didn't have the right gear."
No shit.
Or you would have went off and left them.
Ah, that's cool.
It's funny how you remember things like that.
Well, that was at 35 Speedway, and the reason we were at different speedways is because West Union closed.
Oh, okay.
West Union closed 4 or 5 years after we got our start.
they did.
And
Yeah.
when West Union closed, we had to venture out.
Yeah.
We went to Hillsboro Racetrack,
Which was a nice track.
nice track, and we raced
Yeah.
a bunch there. By then, I was racing a two-cycle for Robert Dunham.
Yeah,
It was a stock appearing two-cycle.
which was a great class.
Yeah, and that was a cool class because you, Willis, and me, and all of us were in the same class.
Yeah.
So I'd actually
Oh,
get to
yeah.
race you.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and we'd all get to race each other. And I drove for a guy named Robert Dunham, and I would still run my four-cycle against Fast Eddie. Remember Fast Eddie?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, they
He-
were out of Columbus area.
Yeah, he ran a four-cycle, and he was the one to beat.
Yep.
And then the two-cycle was stock appearing two-cycle, and we ran that class. And I remember Robert Dunham, I had an old yellow go-kart that was an old cart.
Yeah.
And wasn't quite quick
It
enough.
was a Yamaha cart.
Yeah.
It was too damn heavy.
Yes.
It was well built, but it was just
yeah.
too heavy.
And I know Robert finally got fed up and said, we're not doing this. And he went out and spent some money, and we
Yeah.
got a Comet engine stock appearing, and that thing was a rocket.
Yep.
And then by then, Willis Freeman had kind of slowed down on his racing, and he hand built
He
a
broke
go-kart.
his foot.
Oh,
He
really?
got tangled up at West Union.
God, I
broke
don't
his
remember
foot.
that.
Oh, yeah.
Man, that's wild.
Yeah, that's when I started driving his stuff.
Okay, I remember you
Yeah.
were in his cart for a while.
Yeah.
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 And then
Well, he didn't tell shit. To get that, he didn't tell his wife.
did he broke his foot?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah, she told him he sprained it at work. And he had some kind of thing wrapped on it, and it was broken.
Dang.
Yeah.
That's so
You
funny.
have that.
Yeah, that's good. He hand built a go kart from scratch, and
Oh, yeah.
by this time we had Hillsboro closed down, didn't they?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And we started venturing out, and we're looking for other tracks, and a track called Thunderbolt Speedway in Glencoe, Kentucky,
Yeah.
opened up.
Yeah.
And Willis built this kart from scratch, and it was the Flexi Flyer. That thing would
was.
flex.
Yeah.
I could sit in the cart, and you guys could pick any wheel off the ground like 3 inches
Literally.
before any other
Yeah.
wheel would leave the ground.
Yeah.
It was just a flexible cart.
Yep.
And it worked. It worked good.
Yeah.
And we put Robert's Comet on it.
Yeah.
And went racing, and I went undefeated that year
Yes,
at
you
Glencoe.
did.
How did we end up at Glencoe?
Oh, the only other place that was running was 35, and they really didn't have a class for us. There was something goofy about it, but there was a reason Willis didn't want to go there. And so we ended up down there. And I wish in hindsight that there would have been more carts, but there was always a half dozen,
Yeah.
eight or 10 in
Yep.
the class. So that's enough to have a race. And yeah, you did.
I ran 2 classes there.
Yeah, you did.
I'd run the 4 cycle. I'd go out and run
Yeah.
the 4 cycle and come in, and you guys would have the 2 cycles sitting there running, ready to go.
Correct.
And I'd stand up.
Now I ran it twice there. That first of the year,
Okay.
and then I don't know why I quit, but I did, and you got in it, and that was into that.
Well, talk about the fast way around that place.
Up high, just up high and letting
Right against a plywood wall.
Yeah, exactly.
Had a wall around that place.
Plywood wall, and the reason I had plywood is because when we first went there, they had chain link. And I tried to explain to the promoter that chain link is kind of like a cheese grater. So maybe if you could put, 2 foot of plywood around the track, it might help. And he did.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Terry, was that his name?
Terry. I don't
Yeah.
know whatever happened to him. Nice fella.
Yeah.
Nice fella.
But we raced that joint, and the 4 cycle class, I had some pretty good competition, but I ended up winning the championship in that class. And then I went undefeated in the 2 cycle, won every weekend.
Yeah, you did. That was good.
I remember that go-kart, you would go into the turns, and it would pick the left rear off the ground.
would.
Like
It would.
going in and just plant itself. And afterwards, same deal, after we'd race, they'd turn guys loose. And you got a good story about that there.
Yeah, I do. I was back loading our stuff up, just kind of cleaning things off, loading it up. And I heard a guy out there on a cart, go down the straightaway wide open. And then I heard a big boom. I thought, oh man, he hit the plywood. This guy hit, because people went, ooh, and like they're watching fireworks.
Some
and stuff.
dumbass just hit the wall.
Yeah, and it turned out to be you.
Yep.
The guy
Yeah.
came to you and said, this thing just won't handle. Hey, Josh, please run it around there and tell me what we can do to make it turn left. And it wouldn't handle. You were right.
Yeah, it
He
didn't
was
turn
right.
left. I went in to turn wide open and turned the wheel, and nothing happened.
I heard it clear across
God,
the
I
daggone
blasted
parking
that.
lot.
But we did dial him in and get him fast after that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That was a ride. Now, about that time, we were kind of getting to the end of go-kart racing, and
We were. And then you and I got to run each other up at AR's track.
Yep.
What was that, Fantasy?
Fantasy Farms.
Yeah.
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 Yep.
And that's where we first met the Hiltons.
Oh, okay. Mike
yeah,
and him.
Mike,
yeah.
they were up there running.
Was
Yeah.
Bobby and all of them running, or just
I'm
Mike?
sure they were,
Yeah,
but
the
Mike's the only
grandpa
one I
was.
remember. Oh, yeah, John was there.
John
mentioned,
was
I'm
there.
sure.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, about this time, that's when Willis decided he wanted to go racing modifieds.
Correct.
That's what ended the go-kart stuff.
Yeah.
And Willis said, basically, if I build a modified, will Josh drive it? And I'm sure you said, yeah, sure.
I
he'll
said,
drive
yeah,
it.
but ask him.
Yeah.
I'm sure I said
At this time, I was 16.
I don't think you were 16 yet.
Okay. Maybe
You
not.
might have been.
Maybe not. But he bought a modified, and we went mod racing.
Yeah. By the time you got in the car, you were old enough.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then that first modified was a heavy race car.
Oh yeah, yeah, which is good. We knew we weren't going to go out there and set the world on fire, but you're going to have to get some laps and learn how to race.
Yeah.
So we bought that car at the Louisville auction. Yeah.
Yeah.
And brought it home just as a roller, and put an engine in it, and went to opening night at Florence Speedway.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep,
Yeah,
yep.
I remember that. I remember that first time in the car was at Florence, and it
Yeah.
felt good.
Yeah.
Felt decent.
Yeah.
And we ran modifieds for 9 years, I think.
Long time.
Yeah, 9
Yeah.
years we ran them.
Yeah.
We ran that car and won a bunch of heat races and even won a dash in it, but never won a feature in that car.
Right. Just too heavy.
Just too heavy. And we ended up buying a DeWitt modified, which was
Yeah.
a lightweight.
It was a lightweight
Rocket.
roller. Yeah.
And Willis would build the engines.
He would.
What would he build?
He would build. We started off with just 355s, but after about a year, we went to long rod 400s.
Wow.
Yeah,
Excellent.
406s, and they would run.
Yep. I remember I was
pretty good
involved
at it.
with the chassis setup, fabricating on the body and all that. Was involved with and would do, and chassis setup Willis and I would work on. But
Yeah.
engine wise, I never did the engine. That was
Nobody
all
did.
Willis.
Willis did. It was all Willis.
That was all Willis.
Yeah.
And you supplied rubber,
rubber,
and rear ends. Yeah, you
and
knew how to
wheels.
set up the 9-inch rear ends.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
And then kind of did underneath the car stuff.
Yeah.
Wednesday night was race night. We'd all go to the race shop and get it going.
Yeah, and I remember
Full
we
maintenance or whatever.
because Willis was such a well-known and liked guy, we always had a crew of people.
Yeah, we did.
Tons of people and
Yeah.
lots of sponsorship, and we're
Yeah.
very lucky to have.
Yeah, I was in charge of getting the sponsors.
Yeah,
And we had 6 or 8 good ones.
yeah,
Really.
very
I mean,
good.
500 to 1,000, 1,500 each.
Wow, that's excellent.
Yeah. And then Bachman didn't give us any money, but he gave us a crew cab dually full of fuel every week.
That's excellent.
Think about that.
That's huge.
That
Yeah,
is
that adds up
daggone
quick.
right. It's huge.
Damn.
Hell. All we had was regular pickup trucks.
Yeah,
So-
and we were racing at Chillicothe, which was KC at the time.
Yep.
And I loved racing there. That was a
Yeah.
big, fast joint.
Yeah.
Any racetracks that you ran up high, I always liked. We just liked running up high.
Yeah.
I hate that huggy pole shit. And then we run Lawrenceburg a lot just because I had grown up at that track.
Yeah.
And but
like
I remember we ran KC more than Berg at the beginning. Why was that? Why did we
Those-
stay away from Berg?
It was always flooded.
Oh.
Early in the year, it'd be flooded. And then
It
after
wouldn't
you're-
race till July.
Yeah.
Some shit.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And
And so
we
we'd end up at KC and
Locked
you
into
just
the
stayed
points and
there. Yeah.
comfortable.
And then picking up Jerry at Ford. We'd swing into the Ford parking lot in Batavia, pick up Jerry, and going out 32.
Yeah,
Worked
that's
out
cool.
well.
What are some of the good stories from KC you can remember?
I remember you. Yeah, there's a couple of them. One of them ended with you had the steering wheel in your hand.
Oh shit!
Yeah,
Yeah,
the steering wheel came off.
steering wheel came off on the
Yeah.
front straightaway, and I
And another time you
climbed
got-
the wall and took a ride.
Going into 3, you got tangled up with was it Carter Jones, and you both went out of the place.
Yes, we went out of that place out like the Evil Knievel jump.
Oh yeah.
Went out.
It
Boom.
wide open, and it got. What'd you say? It got real quiet.
It got real quiet and real dark. I remember it got quiet and dark, and I thought this sumbitch is in the air, and then boom, we landed. And when we were tangled together, bumpers were tangled together, and then when we landed, it knocked us loose.
Yeah.
And I remember we landed, and it was dark, and we were on grass, and it was dew covered.
Yeah.
And I heard Carter fire up and go off to the right, and I thought he must know where he's going, and I followed his direction, and we ended up both coming back up over the track. And then I went out of the place over by the start finish line.
Qualifying.
Qualifying.
Yeah.
Oh, I set a
yeah.
good time on that
Well,
one.
no, even hot lapping. No,
Yeah.
I take it you
It
were
was
hot
hot
lapping. I'm
lapping,
sorry.
yeah.
Yeah, you went out of the place backward. And
Right in front of
bent
you.
the car pretty good. Yeah.
I went out. That was the
Yep.
same deal. I went into 1 and 2 and had carried way too much speed.
Yep.
And went up and out, and I knew I was going out of the place, so I turned the car around backwards and went out backwards.
Yep.
And same deal. It got quiet, and I said, "Oh shit!" And when it landed on the back, it knocked the wind out of me.
Yeah.
And I started trying to fire the car off to come back up, and you came down the hill, giving the finger on the throat, cut it off.
Yeah.
And I remember you leaned in and said, "Man, the back is destroyed. We're done.
Yeah, this thing's hurt.
You're not going to keep racing."
Not tonight, anyway.
No. And then who was fast guys there?
Crace. Bob Crace was the one to beat.
And Frazier was a rocket.
Yeah.
Old man
Frazier, who just won a feature this year, 84 years old.
Jesus.
Won a feature this 83 or 84.
That's awesome.
Yeah, because you know
that's
there's no
awesome.
slouches up there.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
At that time, who were the big sprint car guys there? The 00 and the 9?
Yeah, the 9 was the lawyer type. I forget his name.
Not Hoover.
Yeah, Tracy Hoover.
Tracy Hoover, yeah.
Yeah, but the big dog was Fisher. Charlie Fisher.
Charlie Fisher.
Yeah.
Yep.
And man, he was a stud.
Yeah.
But then
Jim Neer was there running.
Jim Neer was
the
good.
doubles.
Mike Bowling was
Bowling was
right
a
in
rocket.
there. Bowling was. You know what?
We're going to end up getting him on the podcast.
Yeah, you will. He'd be a
He
good
was
one.
the winningest driver of the decade of the 90s.
Exactly.
At KC.
Now that's saying something.
That's saying something because, I mean, the competition are Ward Outlaw guys.
Yeah,
now. I mean,
absolutely.
They're the top
yeah.
dogs.
Yeah, and he, he never had any money to speak of.
Yeah, low
he
bucker.
ran out of his own pocket.
Yeah.
That's pretty stout.
He was a smart guy.
Yeah, he was.
Yep.
Very,
then-
he's got great stories too.
Yeah, he does. We ran there forever and we were fast and we never won a feature. When we were running for points there, we never won a feature. And then we had decided to go run Lawrenceburg because they had fixed the track a little bit and Greg Staub became the promoter.
Yeah, and
we
Greg
all
was
knew
always a
Greg.
friend,
And
yeah.
Greg was a friend, so we wanted to go support him. And we went to Lawrenceburg to run. And I just posted about this on my Instagram. We had a bunch of McQuarrie tires that we needed to sell.
Mm-hmm.
And KC opened up a week before Lawrenceburg, and we decided to go up there to run the McQuarries and try to sell all the used tires we had.
Yeah.
And we went up there on our 3-4-year-old McQuarrie tires and won the feature on the opening night.
That still kills me. I don't know how you did that. Yeah.
Yeah, and came from like 6 or 7.
Yeah.
Came from back
Yeah.
in the pack and kicked ass. Was
Yeah.
leading by like the 6th lap.
I know it.
And
I know
flying.
it. Yeah,
and
that was good.
And I remember too, we had told all of our helpers and all the wives and the girlfriends and everything stay home because we're on 4-year-old tires and we're not going to do any good.
Yeah, exactly.
Went up there
I
and won
remember
the deal.
that. Yeah.
Won the deal. And in the picture, we all got big coats on and shit. It's cold.
It's cold.
Early
Yeah.
in the year.
Yep.
So then we go to Lawrenceburg and run, and I really liked that because that was our home track.
Yeah.
And
I liked the
and
Berg.
Greg Staub had taken over, and he had switched the track to non-wings.
Yes.
And that was big. And I remember at the time, we had been racing go-karts and modifieds so heavily that we had kind of, you can't go watch racing when you're doing your own racing.
Right.
So you were just stuck with whatever you were at. And with Racing KC, we would see phenomenal wing shows weekly.
We would. Yeah.
And there was a few shows we'd still go to. We'd go to the Hoosier Fall Classic. We'd never miss that.
Right.
But I remember the announcement went out that Greg Staub was going to run non-wing cars. And I didn't really, the last time I'd seen non-wing cars, I was like 5 years old.
Yeah.
And I asked you, I said, what's the deal on the non-wing cars? And I just remember you saying, you're going to see some serious shit.
Yeah.
This is
Sideways stuff.
Sideways.
Yeah.
Lots of passing.
Yeah.
It's totally different type
It's
of
just
racing.
different.
And
it's not as fast, but it's different.
Yeah. And man, you were right. God,
Yeah.
we saw some good.
It's a good. Yeah, I enjoy it.
And I was
like them
happy.
both. I
Yeah.
still like them both, but if I have a choice, I go to traditional.
Yeah, it's just a different kind of racing, different.
It is
You
Different
set up
mindset,
guys different.
everything.
You set
Oh,
different
yeah.
lines and everything.
Yeah.
And that took a hold. And a lot of tracks went to non-wing. And
Yeah.
now today, it's 50-50 almost.
I'd say it is.
It's a lot of
and
non-wing.
probably money gets in there. I'm
Yeah,
sure it
that
does.
was Greg Staub's reason that he used. I remember he told us that he knew it was better racing, but you can't convince anyone of that.
right.
So he used the excuse that it's cheaper on tires,
Mm-hmm.
cheaper on engines, less hard on equipment. You don't have to, you don't have to buy a wing every time the car falls on its side.
Yeah.
All that, and
Yeah.
that was his excuse.
Yeah, it worked. Mm-hmm. No doubt about it.
So we went racing at the Berg.
Now that
and-
said, Staub was a stud with a wing on.
yeah, I've seen the Ford
he
car
did.
with a
He-
wing
He
on.
won like 13 in 1 year down there.
Really?
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah. He was in the Stinger Ford car. He was pretty good.
That's awesome.
Yep.
He was a good promoter. I liked him.
Yeah.
When we went to race at Berg, who was the competition we ran into there?
let's think about that.
I know two would have been the old man Alan Barr,
Alan Barr.
who was an old sprint car racer.
Yeah.
And
Harris.
Denny
Harris
Harris,
was there.
and then the number 5.
Oh yeah, Kerry Norris.
Kerry Norris.
Man, he was a stud.
I mean, he's an ex-World Outlaws racer.
Yeah.
Decided to go modified racing.
If we could have paid Norris to stay home, you'd have won a lot of races.
Yep.
You ran second to him so much.
Oh my God.
you know.
Yeah.
But it made you a better racer.
Oh, it did. And that's,
You know.
I remember that. I remember guys cussing and being sore about Kerry Norris and, a
Yeah.
World Outlaws guy there running a modified. They would complain about it.
Yeah.
And I remember you giving me the talk, man, that's the opposite. You're going to learn so much racing with a
Yeah.
guy like that.
Try to keep up with him.
Try to
follow
run
him.
with that guy.
Go where
follow
he
him.
goes. Do what he
Yeah.
does.
And we did. I learned so much racing with him.
Yeah.
And use him as a rabbit. And
Yeah.
man,
Oh,
learn.
yeah.
You follow him through traffic, you learn a lot.
Yeah.
And then the year 2000 hit,
yeah.
and we went on a tear.
Yeah, you did. You won a bunch. That was good.
Yep.
And you were always top 3, it seemed.
That was the thing. Yeah, we ended up winning the championship in 2000. And
Yeah.
I remember, what was the stat on the finishing in top 3? You had it down.
I had it. I think you were only out of the top 3 once.
Yeah, the whole year.
Yeah.
It was like
Yeah.
one night when a wheel broke or something.
Yeah.
Someone crashed.
Yeah.
But every night we were in the top 3.
Yep.
And to explain how tough that racing was there, we were in the top 3 every single night except one, and it still came down to a 3-way tie on the last night
Yes, it did.
with Alan Barr and Jerry Back.
Jerry Back. Wonder what happened to Back brothers. They
I don't
were
know.
good
They
racers.
were good. They were fast.
Yes, they were.
Came down that last night, and Alan Barr crashed in his heat race and was done, so he was out of the running.
Yeah.
And it came down to Jerry Back and I won my heat, and he won his heat, and
Ooh.
didn't help us at all.
No.
And I remember the way the points we lined up. I started. They inverted the field. I started 6th, and he started right in front of me in 4th, and on the outside. And I remember you saying we had it figured out that I couldn't let him get 2 cars out in front of me. I had to
Is that
stay
what it
within.
was?
I had to
Jeez,
stay within
beast.
2 positions of him,
Yeah.
or passing.
Yeah.
And I ran behind him and never could get around him, and ran right behind him. We ran like 3rd and 4th, I think.
No
Right there.
kidding.
Yeah, we were in the top 3, but right.
Yeah.
I don't remember. and probably Norris probably won it,
Probably.
but I kept him right in front of me, and that
Isn't that
wrapped the
funny?
championship up by like 2 points.
Cool.
Yeah, that was cool. And but I remember halfway through that year, we had been racing since I was 10 years old, and now I'm 21, 22,
Yeah.
25 maybe,
Yeah.
early 20s.
Last year of college.
Yeah, so 22, 23.
Yeah.
And about halfway through the year, we were eating lunch the day before the race, and I told you, I think I'm done racing. And you answered with, I've been done for 2 years. I was waiting on you,
Yeah.
which is
Well,
excellent.
yeah.
It turned into a job.
The deal is when you're racing, you eat and sleep racing all week long.
Yes.
And when you're at the racetrack, man, you love it.
Yeah.
Well, it got to where I was at the racetrack thinking about other things I should be doing, And
Yeah.
wait a minute here. This is.
I remember we'd go to the
Yeah.
racetrack, and all we would do is talk about what hot rod show was going on and where all our buddies were at.
That's true. Yeah.
Everyone's down in Louisville at the Nationals right
Yeah.
now, and so built his new coupe, and he's got it down there.
Yeah, Greg
and
got
here we
another
sit,
32, and here we,
Yeah,
Yeah.
in middle Kentucky racing somewhere.
Yeah.
and
yeah.
and
it turned into a job.
yeah, it just changed.
You know.
And I can remember when I was 10 years old racing go-karts, you told me, we'll do this till it's not fun anymore. And I thought you were crazy. How could this not get
How
fun
could this
anymore?
not be fun? Yeah, no kidding. Isn't that right?
So I told Willis, the car owner, that was my last year, and we won the
Yeah.
championship that year at Berg,
Yeah.
and walked away from full-time racing
Yeah, you
on a
did.
championship year. And I
And then I'd been-
graduated college.
Yeah, and I'd been looking for an old car to restore.
That's right.
And then I mentioned it to the pit steward, and he said, there's one up in Bright.
Okay. Tell us about that car.
In a backyard in Bright. He said that, originally it was in storage in Bright, and it's in pretty good shape. Hasn't run in years, but it's old. No engine. So I go up and look, and no, it was in a backyard, pretty shabby, but it was complete. Wasn't bent up. Had a front axle under it and stuff. And old Nance, late 60s Nance, had a cage on it, a very early, ugly cage, but it welded on. It wasn't cobbled up at all. And the best part is the owners and drivers were still alive, so I got to talk to them.
Cool.
And took the War Department with me, and we were up there looking at it. And she said, what do you think? I said, I think I'm going to buy it. And she plopped out the money and said, Merry Christmas.
No shit.
Yeah.
So mom bought your first vintage car.
She did. She did. And we
Yep.
drug it home, and it's in the back room as we speak.
That's cool. That's
Yeah.
a late 60s, early 70s Nance car.
spring front car.
That's cool.
Yeah, and it was
Very
just too heavy at the time to be competitive.
Okay.
It was right when everybody was really figuring out lightweight.
Yeah.
And,
Kinzer and Trossel and them guys had figured
Yeah.
out.
Oh, yeah.
Get them light.
Yeah, and those guys bought this car, brought it home, and it wasn't quick. And, excuse me, but they had enough sense to know that Nances were good cars back then. So they ran it for 2 years, maybe 3, and went back to Nance, bought a new lightweight car, and got to going pretty good
Okay, cool.
locally.
Very good.
And this car survived.
Yeah.
So
That's cool. And at that time, that was 2000. It was 2000.
Yeah.
Because we were at the banquet. So 2001, you start playing with vintage cars.
Yeah.
And by then you had gotten back into hot rodding. When I was in college, the hot rods went away. College was expensive, and the hot rods went away. And then once I got out of college, you ended up with a 32 Ford truck and a couple. You got back into old hot rods, but you also got into the vintage cars.
Yeah.
At that time, I got into what I wanted to do full time was design and build hot rods.
Yeah.
And I went down that street. But you got into the vintage stuff, the vintage speed equipment.
Yeah,
And
I like that.
started filling your back room with that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, I was looking for stuff for the Nance car, and I was finding a lot of stuff that was too old to race, but too new for the serious vintage collector.
Yeah.
But it was cheap and it was cool, and I'm a pretty good pack rat. And I thought to myself, I'll buy any injector I can get, set of injectors I can get for under $300.
Yeah.
Hillborns.
Yeah.
And the back room's full.
Cool.
Well, and
Oh,
then, Halibrands, I like old Hals. I set the limit on them down low. Guys older than me go nuts over flathead Fords. That's not me. I remember 327s.
Yeah.
So I wanted small journal 327s. And camel hump heads and all that junk. So
Yeah.
I've collected them over the last 20 years. And I don't know how many are back there, but there's enough.
Yeah. Yep.
know.
There's probably 20 or 30 of them back there.
They don't need a thing. I'm happy to have
No,
them.
they're good to have. about 2006, 5-6 years later, I've been bit by the vintage bug.
Yeah, you did.
And I wanted vintage cars, and I built you a street legal sprint car.
You did.
1936. I ended up with a running gear out of a 36 Ford.
Yep.
And I built this street legal sprint car for you, and I gave it to you on Christmas as a payback for all the lawnmowers and go-karts and shit that I had destroyed over the years.
You did indeed. And I thank you. I appreciate
You
that.
still got that car.
I do. Oh, I won't ever sell that car.
No.
You know.
And then
It's in the back room. Does fine. It'll fire right up.
Yep.
Actually, I was going to take it to Berg today for the
practice.
open practice, but then I remember my son's got both trailers in Michigan. So,
Yep.
wait a minute here. This is not going to work well.
That's right. That's right. That brings us to today with the vintage cars, and
Yeah.
you know, people know what I do with vintage sprint cars and Indy cars. And I've been very fortunate to stick you in Indy cars and get you
And I
around the
thank you.
speedway.
Yep. I'm amazed.
Which is very important. You
I got
know.
to tell you, the first time you actually are on that track and you come out of 4 and come down that straightaway with those grandstands on either side,
That's when it sets in.
you just
That's
can't
it.
imagine that you're actually in a race car on that track. And it'll bring a tear to your eye,
Oh,
man,
yeah.
when you just think of what's going on there.
Yep.
The history, it'll get a hold of you.
I
It
just
will.
had that discussion with a buddy of mine, Munshine, that took his rear engine car there this last
Yeah.
year. And he asked me, you know, what do I do? What's this at? And I said, man, it's blast. You'll love it. I said, you'll pull out on the back straightaway and you'll go down the back straightaway and you'll be worried about the car and you'll be like checking your gauges and all that shit. I said, you'll go through 3 and 4, the short chute, and you'll be like feeling the car. And I said, you'll come out of 4 and you'll get on the throttle. And I said, when you see that pagoda and the tower and the grandstands, you'll forget everything about the car.
You will.
And it will set in.
You absolutely will.
And shit'll change.
It will.
Yeah. And
it'll get a hold of you.
Oh,
You
yeah.
think, what,
and he
man,
told me
what is going
afterwards, he
on
said,
here?
"This, you were right. As
It's
soon as I
amazing.
saw that,
Yeah.
it's just you
Yeah.
can feel the history of
Oh,
going
with
down
the
the straightaway.
wind in your face and yeah, I'm thoroughly
That's
impressed.
cool.
Yep.
So-
if I never do it again, I got to do it a couple
That's
times.
exactly right.
What the heck?
Now, what are you building now? What are you into nowadays?
Still like hot rods, that's for sure. Still like sprint cars. I've got an old '63 Chev Post car. We're back to them 409 Chevys. I remember them as a kid, and I've always wanted one. So I stumbled on a good '63 big horse 409 about 12 years ago, maybe
Yeah.
10 or 12 years.
Yep.
Stuck it in the back room, and then we went on the hunt for a good post car. They're hard to find. You can get hard tops Impalas all day long, good ones, but a post car, they're rare. And a builder down in Tennessee, your buddy Bobby Holloway, had a line on a good, you know, came out of Long Beach, California,
Yep.
and we picked it up, 8 years, 9 years? Well, we took it to Bowling Green in '09, so we've had it 10 years.
10 years.
And drove it around with a small block 4-speed in it. And then now this past winter, I went through the 409 and I had Mike Bowling put the bottom end together.
Yeah.
And some other guys did the head. Barker did the
Cool.
heads, I
Yep.
should say.
Yeah.
And it's in there, and hopefully it'll be running shortly.
Good. Very good. It's
Yeah.
an excellent looking race car.
Yeah, I won't
That's
ever
cool.
sell it. It's just
No, I can't
it'll
wait.
go to the back barn, and then I'll finish that damn blue car.
Yeah, the very first sprint car.
Yeah, the one that should have been first.
Before we wrap this up, let's tell some any good racing stories or growing up stories. Me and Joey stories. Anything you can remember?
I got a good you and Joey story. They promised me they're going to ride these dirt bikes out back. I said, okay, but don't go back in the woods. That one major creek back there, you know, don't go past that. Yeah, no problem. So I was apparently gone. I don't know where I was, probably working. And Joey carried you back to the house with a broken leg, and the dirt bikes was wrapped around a log or tree or wherever the hell it was. I don't know. And then another time you cut a finger off on a damn dirt bike. And
Yeah.
I remember telling you to get back in a race car where it's safe.
I do remember that. All the injuries I had growing up was on BMX bikes or dirt bikes.
Yeah, that's a fact.
Never got hurt in race cars.
Luckily. Knock on wood, man.
Yeah.
Knock on wood.
Yep.
That's about it.
We went down to you seemed to, I was telling Cameron, you remember our races way more than I do.
Well, I was watching them.
Yeah, and
You were a little
that's
busy.
what I told Cam. I said it must have just been because I was focusing on the job at hand so much.
Yeah.
Because you remember tracks we went to and where we finished and all that.
Yeah.
What were some of all the tracks we ran
Well, we ran, let's think, Brownstown, obviously.
Where was the track we ran that was so dusty you couldn't see the cars on the
Yeah,
track?
where was that? That was up
Portsmouth?
No.
Southern?
We got fogged out at Portsmouth.
Fogged out.
Yeah, the Ohio River. No, we were at, shoot.
Is it Southern?
No.
No.
You ran good at Southern. You spun right in front of the whole damn field. Started on the pole. And I mean, this is a big old fast place, man. And damn it, you spun, just put it. I thought he's going to win this race. And they threw the green, and you went into one and put it sideways in front of everybody, and nobody hit you. They all missed you.
Nice.
Yeah. Daggone it, what's the name of that place up there? That old racer runs it, the guy that raises hell all the time, cusses constantly.
I don't remember that.
As soon as I said the name, you'd know.
Goddard? No.
Yeah, Goddard.
Goddard?
Yeah, Goddard.
Goddard,
Yeah.
jeez. Yeah.
Yeah. And then
It was
Billy, he's an Indian. What the heck is his name? He was good friends with,
T-Garden?
yeah, Billy
Okay.
T. Billy,
Yep.
Yeah, T Garden was the promoter of the track.
Okay.
Yeah. And his son Danny's running a sprint car this year at Berg.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, he's back.
And that place got a little dusty.
Oh, my God, it was unbelievable. And he watered the hell out of it, but it didn't help.
Yeah.
It didn't help.
They threw the green, and I was following Carter Jones again, and I could see his car, and he couldn't see either. He had to have been following the guy in front of him.
I don't know how I couldn't see cars on the track.
Yeah.
I thought this is crazy.
And of the 20 cars, I know 15 of them pulled in.
Yeah.
There was only like 5 or 6 of us left out there.
Wow.
And I remember I was following Carter, just hitting my line, whatever Carter hit, I hit.
Yeah.
And just running, thinking if we survive, because I knew we were running the top 5 because
Yeah.
we started up there.
Yeah.
And I thought I'll just survive and get paid. And we went down the straightaway, and basically you were counting seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, turn. And I remember I went down the back straightaway and I counted the seconds. And when I got to the part to turn, Carter didn't turn. And I lifted and thought he should turn. And about that time, I saw his car change angle, and he went out of the place. And I turned and stayed out there and run like third or fourth and came in. And you and Willis are just shaking your head and say, we have no idea where you finished, what happened.
No
Didn't even know
clue.
you were still running, any of that.
It was crazy.
And then Richmond, Kentucky.
Yeah.
Tell that story that you just told.
Ran Richmond. Oh, that was a good story. You were running around. You were doing okay. No, but Willis wanted you to move up. And you knew where we were standing, and Willis kept motioning you up, pushing his hands out, move up. And I guess you'd had enough because you moved up and went between 3 and 4 all the way around the track, throwing sparks, the right rear, right against the guardrail.
Just planted it against the wall and stood on it.
Yeah,
well,
absolutely.
it was a stout cushion.
Yes, it was. It held you in.
Yeah.
No doubt about it.
Yep. That's cool.
That was pretty good.
That's very good.
Good time.
We are sitting here in your shop today, full
Yep.
of old gas pumps and stuff, and we're getting ready to head to Brownstown.
We are.
And we're going to go up there and watch the No Way Out 40.
Yep.
And
For about the 5th or 6th time straight.
Yep. And you've got a thing that you do that you started, and we're going to get Cameron to start it. And it's something I recommend guys do if you're a race fan. Keep a notepad in your truck, and as you're driving down the road, jot down every racetrack you've been to.
Yep.
It can be any kind of racing, from go-karts to
Oh, yeah.
motorcycles to drag strips to dirt
Yep.
tracks to RC tracks.
Yeah.
Any
And you
track.
don't have to see a race. You just have to say, yeah, I was at that track and I saw the track.
You walked in and saw the track.
Yep.
And how many are you at right
I think
now?
106.
106. And I mean, granted, like the USAC guys and stuff, they're
They'll
in the
scoff at
200s.
that.
But yeah. But as a fan, it's
good.
100 different tracks is awesome.
Yeah. When you start writing it down,
You're
all of a sudden you got to
amazed.
break it down into categories.
Yeah,
You know,
and
kart
you-
tracks, or you don't.
You'll be amazed at how quick you get to 50.
Oh, yeah.
Like you don't
Real-
think it.
real fast.
The first thing you think is, I've probably been to 10, 20 tracks. And once you start listing them,
Oh, man.
you get to 50 real quick.
Yeah, you do.
So that's cool. That's a cool thing you do.
Well, you're way past me.
Yeah, with the vintage stuff.
You're a
but-
slacker. So
Yeah, but
what can I say?
You got to see places like New Bremen and those places
Well,
that I
there
didn't
is
get
that.
to see.
There is that.
What was the track you and Skip would go to that you set on the big hillside?
Oh, that was up in West Virginia. Daggone it.
Not Pennsylvania.
Pennsboro.
Pennsboro.
Thank you. Yeah, they paid $50,000 to win for late models
Jesus.
several times.
Wow.
And it was a pear-shaped track. Very cool. Had a creek running through the infield. So there was a bridge
Jeez.
under. Oh, yeah. This
Jeez.
place was neat. And then West Virginia, hell, there's no level ground up there.
Yeah.
And you would set up in these pine forests sitting in pine needles, looking down on the track, and they would, these little shovels that like they use in the army. Mm-hmm. People would pass those around so you could dig out a little notch and set your buddy or set your cooler on. I mean, this is a steep hill, West Virginia, man.
Damn, that's cool.
It was cool.
That's very cool.
Yep, I'd go back in a heartbeat.
Well,
I was
good.
there twice.
That's cool.
Yeah,
that's
went
cool.
up with Strickers.
Man, that's awesome.
Good. Well, Bud, you've never embarrassed me too much. You're a fine son. How's that?
Yeah. Well,
and we didn't mention your mom. You're in trouble now.
Oh, we did too. We mentioned Mom a couple times.
Yeah, that's the War Department.
Yes.
Believe me.
Well, we'll get back to this. I'm sure we will. We're going to redo another podcast. We'll come up with another topic and go on.
Chapter 2.
Yes, Chapter 2. We'll talk about you with these crazy gas pumps.
Somebody's got to do it.
The weird guy in the neighborhood with the old gas pumps.
Whoever dies with the most stuff wins.
That's right. All right, we're heading to Brownstown to catch that race. Practice was canceled at Lawrenceburg, but
yeah.
So here we go. Talk to you guys later. Thank you.
Carry on.